time once again for Community Forum, and we're very lucky to have back with us live in the studios this morning, Maru Mora Villalpando. Maru Mora Villalpando is with the Northwest Detention Center Resistance, and she is also the founder of Latino Advocacy. Maru, thank you very much for coming in and spending time with us again this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
So start out for people who are unfamiliar. Tell us a little bit about the Northwest Detention Center Resistance and Latino Advocacy.
NWDC Resistance is a grassroots volunteer group that came together to support the first larger hunger strike at the detention center that occurred on March 7 of 2014. That actually came in the heels of a shutdown action that we did in February 24 of 2014. Several individuals came together to put a spotlight on the detention center, which happened to be very hidden from public view. Very little people really knew about it. And the idea was to highlight this horrible place that exists in Washington State, and it shouldn't exist, but also to join the national campaign of the No One More deportation that actually started with young people coming out of the shadows, saying, I'm undocumented and I'm unafraid, and then taking on direct action against detentions and deportations. So once we did that action, and that told people inside that there were people outside ready to support them and even ready to be arrested and in some cases deported, that led to this large hunger strike. 1,200 people, over 1,200 people joined. And we came back together to support that, and we have remained together since then in collaboration with people detained, following their leadership, with the aim to shut down the detention center in Tacoma, but more than anything, to highlight how this movement is going to happen. It's going to be because of people detained leading and all of us outside supporting that leadership.
All right, and Latino Advocacy.
Well, so back in the day, I got the chance to work with several nonprofits, and I got really disenchanted of the nonprofit system. I learned a lot. And I decided that the only true change should come from the people, not from nonprofits. So I came up with the idea that I should be working on the immigration work that I've always wanted to work independently and not to rely on a salary. So I came up with the idea of setting up a consulting business. And by then I also learned as an undocumented person that businesses have more rights than people, especially undocumented people. So I set up my business with the aim to, one, get some income that would, just pay the rent and then allow me to do all my immigration work, again, without depending on anybody's salary. But then also to utilize the business in whatever shape or form grassroots groups needed it. So Latino Advocacy became this group that was used by several grassroots community groups across the state. I actually became a lobbyist for both the state and at federal level in Washington, D.C. And I would travel as, representing different groups in different districts. And it was very impressive to show my Latino Advocacy card and say, talk to legislators or Congress people and say, I represent, such and such groups from your district. And my role was to inform back to those groups in different areas, Yakima, Forks, Vancouver, the Seattle area, Bellingham, Mount Vernon, etc., to report back and say, this is what I learned, this is what's happening. I actually refused to call myself a lobbyist for the longest time. I just came to grips with it lately. But that was a lot of the work I did. But I also did a lot of support with other kind of tools like communications, some specific workshops as, grassroots organizing, basic community organizing. And so that's basically what Latino Advocacy has been, is supporting other efforts throughout the state that are completely grassroots, and just getting contracts here and there to survive and pay the rent.
So was it through the umbrella of Latino Advocacy that you did some arranging of community meetings following immigration raids with ICE and other local officials?
Well, the very first meeting that I helped organize was even before Latino Advocacy. That happened between, I think, 2004, maybe 2005, where we saw one of the largest raids in South Park, South Seattle. And that time, there was already, which is now still, an ordinance in Seattle that prohibits employees of the city to collaborate with ICE. And so that time, Seattle police did collaborate in a large raid with ICE, and they took several people. We were called in, and when we realized this has happened, we called all these big nonprofits and say, hey, we have to get together and we have to bring ICE and the police and ask them why did they do this. So I helped organize that meeting. ICE came to the meeting. They never said anything. They never responded any of our questions. But then later on, yes, I either helped organize or participated in meetings. For example, when Janet Napolitano, the first director of Homeland Security, came to Washington, I attended one of those meetings. And afterwards, I helped organize other meetings with federal authorities. Once the hunger strike happened in March of 2014, me and two other lawyers were assigned by the hunger strikers as their negotiators. So we went into a meeting, not because we got invited. We actually crashed this meeting with ICE. And Homeland Security officials were on a video call with us in ICE Seattle offices in downtown. And so we were there, in behalf of the hunger strikers. And I've also attended some meetings that are called community roundtables that Homeland Security organize. They organize them every quarter in different cities. And they are organized through the Office of Civil Rights, Civil Liberties. So I've attended a couple of those meetings. And last one I attended was in September 2016. And again, it's such a waste of time because they're set up so really the officials, either the local police that attends or the Border Patrol or ICE that are there, they get to talk, but nobody else gets to talk. And when you ask questions, they really don't answer our questions. So yeah, I've done some of them even before Latino and then during Latino and after, we created the Northwest Detention Center Resistance. So in those 3 phases of my life, somehow I've been in meetings with ICE.
So it sounds like ICE knew of you and were familiar with you prior to the recent articles about them reading about you in a newspaper up in Bellingham.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely they knew about me in February of 2014 when we came out publicly and we decided to actually, be public not only about the fact that we were doing a shutdown action, but we were also coming out as undocumented. And so obviously they knew of my existence before then. I attended a meeting with Homeland Security in their headquarters in Washington, D.C., in May of 2014. So when we were calling for that meeting, that was actually, we got Representative Adam Smith to help us set up this meeting. They knew when I came to this meeting that I had no social security number. And I met with the then special counsel to Jay Johnson, Elizabeth Olavarria. So yeah, they know of me for a long time now.
So you walked right into the belly of the beast then?
Yes, we were ready to probably not come out, but we figured we need to do that, right? We need to expose the system. And back when Obama was in power, actually there was a possibility to engage with Homeland Security officials. We saw that there was some sort of opening there versus the ICE local office. Right. So during the Obama era, we realized that the field offices were doing something different than what the actually headquarters thought was happening. So we could see that we had some, opening with Homeland Security officials versus the ICE offices. Now that has changed. And that's why at that moment we engaged with them because we thought that there could be a possibility of change, that they could actually listen and implement some changes. But obviously now that's completely different.
And with support of Adam Smith, I know you recently were in D.C. for the State of the Union address, and you had support from Maria Cantwell bringing you there for that. What was your take on sitting through that?
I always tell everybody it was horrible. When the office of Senator Cantwell called us, I was actually shocked by the invitation. I was like, why would I want to go there? But obviously, as a group, we all make out our decisions collectively. And when I talked to everybody felt that this was important. I also talked to people detained, and I asked them what they would like us to do. And they say, you're outside. You could go, and you're the voice right now, so now you have to go. If we were outside and had the invitation, we would go. So obviously it was an obligation for us to actually accept that. And it was not pretty to see, first of all, so many people standing up and clapping for him. It was even worse when he was clapping for himself. But then I realized when people were standing up, I would start looking around and I could catch other people not standing, like me, just sitting and not clapping. So just exchanging, that moment with some of the people that we could see each other not standing, it was really important. Like we felt, yes, there's more of us here than we thought, that we're not gonna stand up and we're not gonna clap. It was really shocking when he brought people of color in their tragedies to pin us against each other. That was really low. I felt like, how low can this go? It's just incredible that, people of color are being used this way to be against their own communities. So I think that's why it's so important that we were there. And there were several of us that actually didn't stand up. And the people that I catch that didn't stand up and didn't clap were all people of color.
And that was also under a cloud where an elected Republican representative had just days before put out the call, I believe, to have everybody checked to see if they're official U.S. citizens prior to entering.
Yeah, it was incredible. I got a call from one of the Congress people saying, hey, just an FYI, we don't know how true this is, but this just came out publicly. But the funny thing is that when you get invited there, they do a background check on you. It's not like anybody just can walk in. As a matter of fact, when you go there, you have to have a special invitation. There are police every single, so many feet in distance. And also, when you go into the gallery to sit down and wait for the whole event to happen, you have to go through another security like the airport. And then you have to surrender your electronics. You're not allowed your cell phones. So it's a whole, process of security. So to me, that felt just another, pandering to their base, the racist, xenophobic, hateful base. And it was just also to instill fear, which works for them. It does work. But I think that the fact that we were there, it showed that it doesn't work for everybody. And for us to actually be there and endure what we endure, I was just looking at the big clock above this guy, and I felt like in the plane when you're like, when are we gonna land? We're gonna, and I kept looking at the clock, and I look at the schedule on my invitation. I was like, this should be over by now. Why isn't this over? So it felt like forever till finally he was done. At the end, I even looked at people around me that, they kept staring at me for not standing up and clapping. And I just look at them. I stared back at them at the end, and nobody told me anything. I was ready to engage. By then, I was like, okay, you want to say something? Nobody said anything. But, the funniest thing is when I finally made it out of the building, I was literally running to catch a cab because they closed the perimeter so extended that you have to walk a lot to find a taxi. And when I finally grabbed one, the guy tells me, were you coming from Congress? And I was like, yeah. Were you there at the State of the Union? And I say, yeah. He says, well, you literally ran away from it, didn't you? Because I saw you running all the way. So he saw me running from the Congress all the way to the street where I catch him. And I was laughing because, yes, literally I was running away. I couldn't take it anymore. It was too much, but it worked. It was important. I think it shows that we are willing to do several things necessary to show that we don't agree with what's happening, and that there's a lot of people that don't agree with this either. I think that this idea to intimidate us is actually turning out to be the opposite. I think more people are getting more courage to fight back.
So talk more about the Northwest Detention Center. It is something that is unique to the greater Seattle area. I believe it's the only one in certainly in Washington, if not the adjoining states.
Yeah, it's the only one in the region. Is the Northwest region detention center. It holds 1,575 people, based on what ICE recently told a group that visited last week or this week. There's about 1,400 people there. I've always believed that ICE lies, so there should be more people than what they say. It opened in 2004. It was built by a private subcontractor of Halliburton, then bought by Geo Group, which is the second largest corporation that lives off engaging people throughout the world. And most of the people detained are men. It's a facility for adults. There's about 100 or so women detained. And it turns out that about 50% of the people detained are not even from this region. They're from other states far away or even from the border. A lot of people cross the border and ask for asylum. They're sent here. So I know there are groups that are calling for the detention center to remain here. They're using this rhetoric of, it's close to people and their families can visit. That's nothing but, lies. They're just hiding in the fact that they're being funded. They're part of the status quo. They're part of this system that allows for even them to make money out of this engagement of my people. And so this rhetoric of, they're close to their families it's untrue. Because it turns out that half of the people are not from the region. We have a lot of people from California, as a matter of fact, and in California there are other detention centers. There are more people being transferred here from Idaho, which didn't happen in the past. So I think for me it's important to highlight that because I've heard those people recently saying, it's close and that's good for their families to visit. As a matter of fact, also a lot of people don't get visits, either because they don't have relatives here or they are in the East Coast or in the southern border, etc. So that's the monster that we're facing, and this is supposed to be their top facility. ICE claims this is their top facility. So that's why we believe that once we shut it down, we are going to be able to shut down the rest even faster.
So talk about the conditions at ICE's top facility.
Medical care is always a problem. People have complained about it. We had the case of a man with cancer that was denied surgery. Most surgeries are denied because ICE don't want to pay for it, although they always ask for more budget. They just don't want to spend the money on that. Whenever people get sick, are always told to either just drink more water or to just take an ibuprofen. A guy recently had a stroke, and the guards took like more than 10 minutes to go to him and see what was going on. They didn't have a defibrillator, any kind of equipment for such a situation. They mishandling him so much, they put him in a wheelchair to take him out into an ambulance, that he ended up all bruised up in his entire body. And I have the pictures, and he said to me, it was a stroke. Why did I end up all bruised up? Did they beat me up? And guards, again, took the longest time. It was really because of the other people in the pod with him calling attention to the guards to come and take care of him. After he was about to be released from the hospital, the doctor told him if they had waited 20 to 30 more minutes, he could have died. And that's just to medical care. And food is always been the problem, the biggest problem. Food is the basic nourishment that human beings need. And that is garbage. People have said it. This is garbage. And we have Jesus Chavez video statement where he says, I've told the guards, if you actually give this to your dog, the dog will bark all night because he will be hungry. Because not even dogs will eat this kind of food. And not only because the quality is bad, it's just sometimes it's rotten. It has foreign items in it, such as pieces of plastic or fingernails or hairs, you name it. So the conditions are just extremely horrible. And the reason why is because it's a business. Geo makes as much money as they can. They want more, right? They never have enough. That's the aim of the corporations, the greed that doesn't have limits. And what we've seen here with Geo is they make money by giving them the worst food they can buy. They make money by putting people to work for $1 a day, if so. Sometimes they get paid in a piece of chicken or candy or soda. And they also end up, subcontracting other private corporations, such as the commissary Skiff. It's another corporation that makes money. The communications fund is Telmet. Now they have video calls. That's gettingout.com. The emails, they have emails, 500 characters for 25 cents. So you name it, everybody's making money out of this, and Geo is the one that is getting the most money out of having human beings in this big cage just in Tacoma, Washington. But there's more around the nation. There's hundreds of these around the nation.
I'm curious, do they use a lot of the same corporations for their services that the other prisons do?
Yeah, it seems to be, for example, to make deposits for commissary is Access Corrections. It seems also the company Telmate is being used in others. For food is Aramark, which is, very known for not being the best company to treat their employees. So if they treat their employees the way they do, imagine what kind of food they're providing, right, to detention centers in this case. So yeah, it seems that they're utilizing almost the same sort of companies. I think they're all colluded together, right? So how do we keep expanding this? How do we continue making more money?
And there's very limited oversight, apparently, for these facilities.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, ICE is responsible because they gave the contract to them. And I was in a meeting again with ICE one time where then ICE Director Seattle, Brian Wilcox, said, Geo does what we say. We are the ones that decide. But when grievances happen, nobody knows who's at fault, right? Geo points fingers at ICE, and ICE points fingers at Geo. Nobody wants to be responsible. And being a private corporation, hardly anybody can go in and check on things, right? So we have asked the Department of Ecology and others to go in and test the water, because remember, it's built in a Superfund site too. And we have heard the same thing about, state agencies saying, well, it's a private corporation only if they let us in. So it's the perfect system where they can get away with everything. They can get more money out of you and I and everybody else. And to the level of I'm not accountable to anybody and I can do whatever I want. And that's what happened recently last month when a hunger strike started again. And on the second day, a couple of people joined the hunger strike that started the day before. This guy came in and beat up 3 guys. And one of them got a black eye and was sent to solitary confinement and not given medical care. We find out through his family what was going on, and other people from detention call us and say this just happened. And when we started, being able to talk to them, we say, well, you have to report. You have to report this, call police, because we learned through one of those so many meetings with ICE and the Homeland Security that if an incident like this happens in a detention center, in a assault happens by a guard to a person detained, you have to call police. You have to call the local police and report it because there's no oversight, because nobody's accountable. So the only way to actually maybe move something is to file a police report. So this guy was able to file a police report, and Geo didn't like it, ICE didn't like it, and they actually gave him more days in the hole. That's what they call solitary confinement, the hole. And we were able to get some civil rights lawyers to file a lawsuit, and now there's a lawsuit against the detention center for, this assault, and really going against this person's right to, not eat. That's his right, because that's the only kind of tool they have to express their opinion and organize themselves. So yeah.
So in December of last year, you were sent a notice to appear. Could you briefly talk about that and what your plans are for dealing with that?
Yeah, so a notice to appear is what in the immigration system tells you that a deportation proceeding is beginning against you. So it didn't have a date or a time. It just said that I overstayed a visa that expired in 1996. And so they're beginning this process against me. And so the reason why we made it public, it was because I have never been in an encounter with ICE that could trigger a deportation proceeding against me. I've never been deported. I've never been in jail. I've never had an encounter with police either that could trigger a possible deportation. And so to me, it was a clear sign that this was intimidation, that ICE wants us to stop our work. And so we decided to come out public. In mid-January, we show to the public what was happening. I did not expect so much support. We had hundreds of people showing up at our press conference on a Tuesday at 9 in the morning in downtown Seattle. And I expected 20 to 30 people because we just started telling people the night before. And when I saw that, immense number of people, I was just overwhelmed. And it felt that our years and years of work have paid off. And after that, it's even more so. We had support from not only here in the country, but outside. We had actions being done in London, in Valencia, España, in Mexico City, in support of our case. And what we want to do is we want to expose, how the immigration system, because we allow them to go against our people just because of anything. Now they're becoming a full political repression machine. And that's what they're doing against us, because we are fighting against the system. And we know it's not going to be only against us. It's going to be against anybody that dissents from what this government stands for.
And you had suspected it at the time, but it turned out to be true that the Washington State Department of Licensing was key in turning over information about you
to ICE. Immediately, I realized the Department of Licensing gave my information. We got the document now that shows that, yes, DOL willingly gave my information. And that's just an example of how this agency has been collaborating willingly with ICE. And we want to find out more exactly how that happened. They should be accountable. They should be responsible for it. And we should also find out what other state agencies have been doing this, because I believe it's not only DOL.
All right. We are talking with Maru Mora Villalpando, and she's with the Northwest Detention Center Resistance. How can people find out more about the Northwest Resistance and your events that come up?
Yeah, NWDC Resistance, that's our Facebook page. Today at 1, there's going to be a Solidarity Day outside the detention center in Tacoma. Every first Saturday of the month, we always have actions. So we invite people to come and join us. And we have a pen pal program for those that are interested in supporting those in detention and, sending letters. And we also accept donations. Again, we're a volunteer grassroots group, so we survive on donations of people.
All right. Well, with that, we are unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you very much for coming and spending time with us again.
Thank you.